Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast, the original Tudor history podcast, the OG, as it were, telling stories of Tudor England since 2009. I am your host, Heather. Today we are going to talk about another Tudor pretender. So I actually saw this Nathan Amin, who is a friend of this channel and has been on here before. He has a book about Tudor pretenders. And he also has a Substack. If you're on Substack, you should totally follow it. I will link to it. And he had a post the other week about Raufe Wilford, the other Tudor pretender. And so we're going to talk about that. Before we get into it, though, if you want to see more Tudor history in your YouTube feed, and of course you do, why not go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss a video that we put out. So everybody knows about Lambert, Simnel, and Perkin Warbeck, right? They're the two pretenders who made Henry VII's reign such a headache. Lambert Simnel showed up with a full-scale invasion. Warbeck spent nearly a decade bouncing around European courts trying to gather support. But have you heard of Raufe Wilford? Probably not. And there is a good reason for that. So let's talk about it. And again, this comes from Nathan Amin's Substack and his book on Tudor pretenders. So I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. So by 1499, Henry VII had been on the throne for about 14 years. And if he thought that the chaos of the Wars of the Roses had ended at Bosworth, he would have been mistaken. His reign had been a long game of whack-a-mole, putting down one rebellion after another. The Yorkists were not going away quietly, and foreign rulers, including Margaret of York, who had been the sister of Richard III, kept backing these challengers. By the end of the century, though, Henry had dealt with both major pretenders. There was Lambert Simnel, who was saying he was the Earl of Warwick. He had been defeated at the Battle of Stoke in 1487. Instead of executing him, Henry actually gave him a job in the royal kitchens. And he went on to have a long career and lived under Henry VIII. He was recognized as having been a pawn for these people, so Henry didn't punish him. Then there was Perkin Warbeck, who was saying that he was Richard, Duke of York, one of the missing princes in the Tower. He had been kept at court in a kind of gilded prison, as you were, but then he had to go to the Tower because he tried to escape. The whole thing was kind of turning messy. At this point, he had still been alive, though. He hadn't been executed yet. The real Earl of Warwick, the Yorkist prince who was the sister of Margaret Pole, son of the Duke of Clarence, he had been locked away since childhood. He was still imprisoned in the Tower. So Henry probably thought he was done with pretenders. Then in early 1499, another one pops up. This time, the supposed Yorkist prince wasn't backed by a foreign power or supported by an army. He was just a Londoner's son with no connections at all. His name was Raufe Wilford. He was about 20 years old, the son of a cordwainer, a shoemaker. Unlike Lambert Simnel or Perkin Warbeck, he didn't really seem to have any real claim or any real support, but that didn't stop him from declaring himself to be Edward, Earl of Warwick, and try to stir up a rebellion. He didn't do this alone. According to contemporary sources, Wilford was encouraged by a friar named Patrick, who was an Augustinian priest, who had convinced him that, yes, he could indeed be King of England. Maybe Patrick truly believed it. Maybe he was just using Wilford as a pawn. Either way, they set out to Kent to spread the claim. Kent was a region that was known for rebellion, and so they thought they would start there. It did not go well. Like Lambert Simnel, who had an invading army, or Perkin Warbeck, who had years of foreign support and was married to a Scottish noblewoman, Wilford barely made it out the front door before he was caught. There was no evidence that anyone actually believed his claim. After all, the real Edward of Warwick was very much still alive and locked in the Tower where he had been, like we said, since childhood. Even so, Wilford and Friar Patrick tried to rally support. The Great Chronicle of London claims that they spread their message across the Norfolk-Suffolk border and in Kent, but no serious following ever emerged. People had seen this trick twice before. By this point, they probably just rolled their eyes and got back to work. Wilford's grand rebellion lasted less than 2 weeks. He and Friar Patrick were arrested almost immediately and dragged before John de Vere, Earl of Oxford, one of Henry VII's most trusted men. If Wilford had any illusion about his own importance, it was quickly shattered. He reportedly confessed everything, admitting that his father was no nobleman, just a shoemaker with a shop in Bishopsgate. Henry VII had been patient before. He let Lambert Simnel live, putting him to work in the kitchens. He let Perkin Warbeck live for a time. He was keeping him at court and then finally putting him in prison when things got tricky. But by 1499, Henry was out of patience. He had spent more than a decade fighting off Yorkist pretenders and Yorkist challengers. His reign was still quite shaky, and to make everything worse, he was in the middle of negotiations to marry his son, Prince Arthur, to Catherine of Aragon. And the Spanish royals had made it clear they were not sending their Spanish princess to a country where there were constantly pretenders and threats to the rule and everything like that. So Henry didn't hesitate. On February 12th, 1499, which was Shrove Tuesday then, Raufe Wilford was hung at St. Thomas a Watering, which was a well-known execution site on the road to Canterbury. His body was apparently left dangling for 4 days as a warning to any other would-be pretenders. Friar Patrick was thrown into prison for life. This might have been the end of the story, just a footnote in Tudor history, but Wilford's foolishness actually had real consequences. His timing was terrible. His brief rebellion reminded everybody that the real Earl of Warwick was still alive, and that was enough to make the Spanish nervous. By the end of 1499, Warwick was also executed. So Wilford had failed, but he had sealed another person's fate with his failed rebellion. So I wanted to share that research that Nathan Amin had done. If you are on Substack, go give him a follow. He posts a really, really informative newsletter over there. I really enjoy it. And you can also get his book, of course. So thank you so much. If you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed it, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to even more places. And I hope I earned your subscription where I put out content like this all the time. I am over on Substack. I don't do so much with it though, but if you're on Substack, you can follow me over there too. It's Tudor History is the handle. All right, friend, thank you so much for watching. If you want to keep binging Tudor content, here's a recent video I actually did with Nathan Amin talking about whether or not Perkin Warbeck was the real Richard, Duke of York. So you can check that out. I think you'll like that. Or here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, you are deeply loved. I'm so glad I shared the planet with you. And I will be back soon. Don't forget to drink your water. All right, friend. Have a good one. Bye-bye.